The 80s hairstyles and fashions are back in full swing as we glide seamlessly into episode 2. We start off with the arrival of Dr. Hopple at Camp Redwood as she rides past the payphone that Brooke was using at the end of episode 1. Dr. Hopple checks the camp map and then enters Margaret Booth's cabin.
Dr. Hopple, who reveals her first name as Karen, warns Margaret to shut down the camp due to the escaped Benjamin Richter, aka Mr. Jingles. Margaret refuses to shut down the camp and shows Karen her gun, threatening to bust a cap in Mr. Jingles' ass if he shows his face at Camp Redwood. I might be paraphrasing.
Hopple storms off, completely blowing out her tire on this giant jack, likely planted by Mr. Jingles. Jingles then conveniently pulls up in the tow truck he was seen stealing in the previous episode, pulls Dr. Hopple from her vehicle. He kills her and then takes her ear, not before saying, "You were right, I am a monster."
Back at the cabin, the counselors are partying it up while Brooke is fixated on the news story on the TV, which reports the murder at Ed's gas station. The police question whether it's a part of the string of murders in LA linked to the Night Stalker. Brooke voices her concerns, but they fall on deaf ears.
Margaret shows up and tells the boys to head to the showers, when Xavier bites back saying, "You're gonna make us pray the boners away?" We get more religious banter from Margaret about how this camp is used to cleanse the soul and wash away the sin.
Montana tries to console Brooke by comparing her almost getting murdered to the time that she went to fat camp. Brooke tells Montana the story of her wedding day to her longtime jealous lover Joey Kavanaugh, which comes in a close second to the bloodiest wedding since the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Joey accuses her of cheating with his best man, and she explains that he only stayed the night so that she wasn't alone the night before her wedding. Joey refuses to believe her and kills both the best man and her father before killing himself.
Very nice. Montana judges her vulnerability, along with the bunch of beer she had, and makes a move on Brooke. Brooke does not approve and excuses herself to get some air. Trevor tells the boys the action he got with Montana as they make their way to the showers. Xavier notices a lack of towels and leaves to grab some.
Margaret checks her watch and shuts off all the lights in the camp, declaring it's bedtime. Xavier gets grabbed by porn star producer Blake, who Xavier calls Daddy. Blake is obsessed with Xavier, comparing his body to a Rembrandt painting. In exchange for Daddy saving Xavier and getting him clean, he makes Xavier do gay porn, which he now uses as blackmail. Xavier sees a way out, promising Daddy a guy with a bigger than 80s porn star John Holmes, referring to our elephant man, Trevor. Xavier shows Blake to the peephole and makes a break for it while Daddy's preoccupied.
Seconds later, Daddy's stabbed right through the skull with a stick by a mysterious leather hand. Brooke takes a breather from Montana down by the dock when she sees the body of Dr. Hopple floating in the water. She screams and turns around, only to be interrupted by, you guessed it, the Night Stalker. Brooke manages to escape once again, luring the Night Stalker into the forest.
While chasing her, he runs into the hitchhiker, knocking them both down, allowing Brooke to escape. The hitchhiker takes one look at the Night Stalker and says, "You're not supposed to be here." The Night Stalker slashes the hitchhiker's stomach, prompting him to say, "Wait, I don't die here." Okay?
Moving on, we see Nurse Rita putting away supplies when she encounters Mr. Jingles. Their interaction is quickly passed over, showing Brooke frantically trying to call the police on that same damn payphone. The hitchhiker appears again and is killed again by the Night Stalker, who takes the hitchhiker's badge and sees that he's actually from the 1970s. The stalker seems unnerved by the hitchhiker ghost and bounces.
The boys scream when they find Blake's body, and naturally they poke it with a stick to confirm the death. Xavier plays dumb to knowing Blake when they hear Mr. Jingles' keys, making them all run towards the van.
Margaret enters her cabin with a bottle of wine, or Jesus blood, when she sees the Night Stalker sitting at her desk. He tells her he wants to know more about the hitchhiker. As introductions are made, we learn the Night Stalker's name is Ricky Ramirez. Unlike her unfriendly demeanor with the now late Dr. Hopple, Margaret is surprisingly welcoming to the son of Satan as she cleans up his cut for him.
Margaret curiously questions Ricky about his murderous ways, mentioning that the point of God is to be there when there is no other way to explain something. She asks Ricky to divulge his worst trauma, and when he does, we see a more vulnerable side to this murderous Night Stalker, revealing the following problems with him. His mother breathed in poisonous toxins when she was pregnant. He got hit in the head by a swing, causing him to have seizures. He was exposed to gruesome real-life photos of people his cousin killed in Vietnam. And Ricky was also present when his cousin shot his wife in a domestic dispute. Okay, Ricky, we get it.
Ricky says pain is all he has known, and Margaret tells him he does not have to feel bad about what he's done, because you can simply say, God made me do it. She further presses Ricky and coerces him to find Mr. Jingles and kill him.
Back to the panicking counselors as we see them frantically pack into Xavier's van. As Xavier peels out, Nurse Rita, who I guess survived her encounter with Mr. Jingles, jumps in front of the van, causing Xavier to spin out into Margaret's car. With Nurse Rita's car and Trevor's motorcycle being the only two means of transportation out, the group decides to split up and get the keys. What would a horror film be without a classic group split up?
Now we cut to Margaret's little powwow with the hitchhiker ghost, who we now know as Jonas. Jonas recognizes Margaret, but says she looks so different, referring to knowing her 14 years ago when they both attended the camp. She asks Jonas what he remembers from the night of the massacre, and he reveals that he remembers seeing Margaret covered in blood. He ran away that night and apparently got killed by Mr. Jingles, remembering the jingling of his keys.
Brooke, Ray, Chet, and Rita check out the infirmary where Rita claims she left her car keys, while Xavier, Trevor, and Montana head back to the cabins. Xavier breaks down, admitting to knowing Blake, and claims all of this is his fault. The episode ends with two mysterious figures pounding on the door of both the infirmary and the cabin. Welcome back! This is episode 2 recap and now breakdown.
Break it down.
Break it down.
Alright, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna use that as our theme song. Oh my god.
Break it down.
Break it down. Okay. Alright. So at the top of this episode, we see Dr. Hopple enter Camp Redwood. Because she's trying to find Mr. Jingles. She knows that's where he's headed. Because in the last episode, she found that newspaper clipping saying that Camp Redwood was going to reopen. She's like, no bish.
And then she sees Margaret, who we knew was creepy, but this episode just brought her creep level all the way up. It pretty much revealed that she's got some ulterior motives here, and she's got a screw loose.
Yeah.
And we don't know just how deep her evil goes, but she's definitely got some issues.
Yeah. I found it interesting that when Dr. Hopple breaks into Margaret's cabin to warn her about Mr. Jingles, she is like angry and abrasive towards Dr. Hopple, but then later on when the Night Stalker breaks into her cabin, she's kind of motherly and nurturing to the Night Stalker, the killer. Yeah. Which is insane. Also, when Dr. Hopple's driving into Camp Redwood, I don't know if you noticed, but the music playing is the Halloween music from John Carpenter's Halloween in 1978 or whatever.
My favorite Halloween movie.
I would play it here to show you, but I'd probably get demonetized. That's perfect. It sounded exactly like it. All right, moving on. Margaret.
Well, there was one line in that scene that I wanted to.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
That Margaret says, Mr. Jingles is the reason I reopened this camp. And she said, I've survived him before, and if he's stupid enough to show up, I can promise you Mr. Jingles will not survive me. So.
Boom.
Clearly I thought maybe she was working with him. Still could be. I don't know. But
it is still suspect, though, because first of all, she has a gun, which I find suspect, and she pulls it out. She got the gun prior to knowing that Mr. Jingles escaped.
Yeah.
So she knew something was going to happen where she needed that gun. Mm-hmm. So because Margaret scares Karen off, Dr. Hopple, she leaves and she gets a flat tire. And I think that Mr. Jingles planted it there.
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah.
And then he kind of reveals himself, and she knows she's kind of screwed.
Yep. One thing I wanted to touch on here is that I think there's a part of me that feels like there's some redeeming qualities in Mr. Jingles, and he's either there to get revenge on Margaret because she is really the killer, but she set him up. I
don't know. There's definitely, though, he's a violent man.
Oh, for sure.
He says, I'm a monster.
You're right, I'm a monster. But there's also, I think that Dr. Hopple's kill was not just a random, he stopped a car and killed her, even though he knows her. He killed her because he knows her from the asylum, and based on their history, it seems that she's the one that was handling a lot of his meds, his procedures in there, and if there were some, like, illegal procedures being done, Mr. Jingles is the only one that knows about it that's out.
Yeah. And so, in this one, too, you also see he takes her ear, which he didn't do when he killed the mechanic in the last episode.
Ed, or the orderly.
So
he's either only taking some people's ears, or he's only taking women's ears. So now we're at the point where Margaret shows up and kicks the boys out of the cabin and says they need to shower because in the previous episode, boys shower at night and girls shower in the morning. When she kicks them out, the boys go to the shower, and she shuts off all the lights then.
Yeah, shuts down, like, the whole time. And she looks at her watch as if, like, it's specific time.
Yeah, where it's, like, bedtime, lights out. Yeah, so then we see Xavier leave, and he gets taken by the porn producer, Blake, or Zaddy. Zaddy.
It's Daddy.
So here's where we find out that Xavier used to be a drug addict.
He's a drug addict.
He used to be a drug addict, and Blake, or Daddy, cleaned him up and then made him do a gay porn as payment for cleaning him up.
This was also the man who was threatening him on the phone from the last episode. We weren't sure if that was the Night Stalker or whoever that was, but then we find out it is Blake or Daddy. Then you have this weird shower scene, and you have some peepholes going on here. Yeah.
The one thing I noticed is that Xavier, in order to get out of it, he promises Blake another male that's more well endowed, and he mentions a popular 80s porn star, John Holmes. And he's talking about Trevor, who we saw in the last episode, got kicked out of Jane Fonda's workout tape because it was, as Montana said, flopping like a baby elephant.
Big pain. Big pain.
In that shower scene, we also see Chet admiring Trevor's pain. And I think
I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, there's a whole like
I probably
shot.
Was looking away. So uncomfortable.
And I think because I think it's just alluding to Chet's jealousy and envy because he's been taking steroids, and we all know what steroids do to a guy's member.
Member? What are your Austin Powers?
No. When Xavier takes Blake to the peephole, how did Xavier know there was a peephole there in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, you don't see him discover it beforehand.
Yeah, he already knew about it, apparently.
Yeah.
And then he kind of walks away as Blake is distracted, and then all of a sudden you see Blake get stabbed basically right through the eye.
Yeah. And you only see a leather-clad hand, so it could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be Margaret because she's seeing somebody sin in a voyeuristic way, like watching boys as they shower.
Yeah.
So she needs to take them out. And that's another scary thing about religious zealots is that they will cleanse the world of filth in any means possible, whether it means like taking out people. That's a lot of like religious cults are based on that. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
Could also, I mean, you're led to believe it's Mr. Jingles, and afterwards, when they check the body and poke it with a stick, which is great, they find that his ear's off. But as we've seen, Mr. Jingles hasn't really cut the ear off any guys yet.
No.
So that could be maybe Xavier kind of posing as Mr. Jingles, or and not
Margaret.
Understanding, like he just thinks all the ears are taken, but that doesn't seem to be Mr. Jingles' MO. So
yeah, but we also know that the hitchhiker is also missing an ear.
Yes.
We don't know how that happened.
Yeah, that's true.
While the shower scene is happening, we see Montana try to console Brooke in the worst way possible, comparing to her almost being murdered to her having to go away to fat camp.
Yeah. Well, my favorite line from this whole scene was, "A stranger once grabbed my boob outside of a Sam Goody, so I get it." Such a great line. And also, Sam Goody. Do you remember those stores?
No.
Really?
I don't know.
Guess that's the small age difference in us. I remember Sam Goody. in the mall on Long Island by us. Used to get some sweet cassettes there.
Sweet cassettes. Yeah. Oh my god. Cassettes, children, are
compact discs.
8-track. So and then Brooke goes into what might be my favorite scene in this entire episode, where she tells the story of how she got married on her wedding day. Her husband, fiance, shot her father and his best man before shooting himself because of how jealous he was. Yeah. That's insane.
It's a red wedding for sure.
Yeah, it was very, very bloody.
Afterwards, Brooke says, he didn't believe me. No one ever believes me. And we've already saw that with when she was getting chased by Mr. Jingles and nobody believed her.
Yeah. Also, up to this point, she is the only one that has seen Mr. Jingles and the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
So she could be imagining all of this.
Yes.
We don't know.
I think Montana saw the headlights at one point, but we don't really know who that was.
Yeah. Okay, so we see Montana in like kind of a drunken haze and a moment of vulnerability. She tries to kiss, or she does kiss Brooke, and Brooke's like, scusi, and she leaves.
Oh, Miss
Scusi. And she leaves to get some air, and she goes down by the dock where she finds what we think is Dr. Hopple's body.
It looked like Dr. Hopple.
Yeah.
Kind of floating down the river.
In the preview, and I saw this in another video where they were going over theories, in the preview, that little scene, it looks like a dummy. So it could allude to her seeing things, making them up. And another thing that Montana says while she's trying to console Brooke is, if you look for the bad in everything, that's all you see. When she sees the body, she obviously screams. She gets up and turns, and that Night Stalker's there again.
Yep. And once again, he's a terrible murderer because she hit him on the head again and ran away. And then they have another chase scene, and then we run into the hitchhiker who saves her, and then Night Stalker slashes his guts out, and then a few minutes later, he's back alive again, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, what the hell is happening? But this time when she kills him, or when the Night Stalker kills him,
takes his badge.
He takes his badge and notices that his badge is from 1970. So we're like, okay, he's a ghost.
Clearly a ghost of some sort.
Yes. He also says something extremely interesting, which will kind of play into a theory that we'll talk at the end. He says, you're not supposed to be here. And then when the Night Stalker kills him, he says, wait, I don't die here. Yeah,
that was odd. It could mean a couple things. I mean, he is a ghost, so he knows how he dies. That's one thing. I don't know if you want to go into that other theory.
We can. There's another big theory that I've seen in a lot of videos where this entire thing is a movie set, and all of the people in this story are actors, and they're method actors. I mean, they make a point to show that Xavier studied under Stella Adler, who invented method acting. Not that she invented it, but she like coined the phrase, I guess, of method acting. And in some of the previews before the series started, they showed little clips of audition reels with Emma Roberts, and then some of the campers hitting marks in the cabin. There's a whole thing with the dummy or Dr. Hopple's body that floats in the water could be part of a prop.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it.
I know, it's like it's an American Horror Story.
It's also very similar to Roanoke.
Yeah,
which
where
they've
you're
already
like,
done.
oh, you thought it was real, and then all of a sudden it's a mockumentary.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what's happening? So it could go that way, it could not. Also, there are a lot of, like, with the hitchhiker, could be like, wait, you're not supposed to be here. Like, the Night Stalker could be a real person coming into this film set, and the hitchhiker's like, wait, you're not supposed to be here. And he says, wait, I don't die here, because he's not supposed to die.
But he did stab him, and then he came back to life. So clearly, as a ghost,
different, yeah.
I don't know if he's a actor ghost or a real ghost.
Okay, this scene gets to me. So the next thing is, we see Nurse Rita jamming out, putting supplies away in the dark, as one does, and she's confronted by Mr. Jingles, and you see her frightened, But then it goes to the next scene. You don't see their encounter. You don't see anything, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, and then later on she escapes.
So,
I don't know what's going on there. I honestly have no idea.
I just kind of... I hate you so much. I kind of want to jump ahead later when they're running into the van trying to escape, all of them in there, and Nurse Rita jumps out. I'm like, first of all, how did she escape Mr. Jingles? And then she makes an excuse that her car keys are back in the infirmary.
So they have to go back.
They have to go back. But then it shows a shot of Mr. Jingles, like, waiting, watching the infirmary again. And then you see the flashlight. It's almost like a signal.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, it's time for me to go to the infirmary. It was almost like she worked with him to lure them back to the infirmary.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like how would she escape if she didn't make a plan with him?
Yeah. She also could be a ghost. We don't know. Maybe she was the original nurse and was dead.
She
said... I don't know how the ghosts are interacting so seamlessly with humans. I don't know what ghost rules are, but I guess these are established at some point.
I guess so. I mean, it's only episode 2, so we'll see where it goes.
You're only episode 2.
All right, now we're into where the Night Stalker goes into Margaret's cabin.
The scene is just fucking weird.
It's crazy. It was super long, too.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, he breaks into her cabin, and she doesn't seem fazed by it.
No. Not like she was with Dr. Hopple.
No.
She's, like, welcoming to him and motherly.
Yeah. And he's like, I want to know more about this hitchhiker. And we're all like, yeah, I want to know too, because he's died 18 times. So we see in that the hitchhiker's name is Jonas. And I don't know how to pronounce this, but I think it's Shivors or something. It's Jonas Shivors. Anyway,
his name's Jonas.
It is an anagram for Jason Voorhees.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it does matter.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know. That's what I thought. If you didn't know, is the main killer in Friday the 13th. If you didn't know that, who are you?
Watch some horror movies,
yeah,
bruh.
What the fuck?
Come on, bruh.
So this whole scene is... It almost seems like she views the Night Stalker, or now we know as Richard Ramirez, or he goes by Ricky Ramirez, who was
Dick Ramirez.
Or Dick.
Yeah. I don't know if he goes by that.
So Ricky Ramirez is actually a real Night Stalker, a real serial killer
he
from the 80s.
Actually stalks the night.
Yeah.
It's legitimate. Happens.
He terrorized homes in LA and San Fran and murdered up to 13 people, but was convicted in 1985. So that's what this character is based off of. So Margaret sees him as, like, at least we think she sees him as, like, some sort of, like, child that needs to be saved.
Yeah, we get some backstory on him that we went over in the intro, but he's had some messed up childhood.
He went through it.
So it kind of makes sense that he is now a murderer.
Yeah.
But they have just this weird conversation, and he's like, I like you, and she basically gives him an excuse for being a killer, saying that you can feel okay if you're doing God's work, and he's like, Satan's too, and she's basically like, yeah.
She's like, I knew you were smart.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
and you say you didn't do well in school.
Yeah. Like alluding to this, like the same thing.
Yeah.
Gives him a get out of jail free card, pretty much.
Yeah. And then she basically is trying to convince him to go after Mr. Jingles. So now it's the Night Stalker versus Mr. Jingles setting up, which is pretty cool.
Could it
be? Serial killer face-off. Freddy versus Jason.
Maybe. As long as we get the hip thrusting in the boiler room, I'm good. Yeah, so now we're at the tail end. The counselors and Nurse Rita. Also, where the fuck is Chef Birdie?
Yeah, she up to something. I still think Xavier's a method actor. He's working with Margaret to kind of practice killing. And I think that he killed Blake.
I think so
that's
too.
Where the ear thing maybe comes into play. And you do bring up a good point, though. The hitchhiker's ear was off. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
But
which makes me think it was Margaret back then, too.
Yeah. I mean, we know she's not innocent in this whole thing.
No.
Her whole story of, just hiding and laying silent while she got her ear ripped off.
And even when she questions the hitchhiker, she's not like, how are you alive? Blah, blah, blah. The first thing she asks him is, what do you remember from that night?
Yeah.
Like, because she knows that he...
Everybody just seems to be like, oh, yeah, it's a ghost.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
So it ends with, we have Chet, Brooke, Nurse Rita, and Ray all in the infirmary, and somebody's banging down the door, and we don't know who that is. And while they're being banged on, Xavier starts to break down and admits that he knew Blake when he previously was like, I don't know this man, blah, blah, blah. And says that this whole thing is his fault. I don't know what he means by that. But so it ends with both of the doors being banged down.
Bang-rang.
So you got any closing statements, any other theories you want to throw out here?
No, there was less murder than I expected in this episode.
Yeah, we kind of expected everybody
right off the bat,
die.
Dr. Hopple dies, so I'm like, all right, here we go. And then really the only other death you see, I believe, is the hitchhiker, Jonas, and he comes back to life because he's a ghost.
So I expect
Doesn't
to
really
see
come
him
back to
again.
life.
Even though he's killed again, I expect to see him again.
Yeah. No, he's still hanging around there.
He's got some unfinished business, apparently, because he's the only one that hasn't moved on. He's still there if he is a ghost. I want to see some more backstory about the asylum that Jingles was in. I hope they go into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so that ends our episode 2 recap and breakdown. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thumbs up help us out, so do that, please. Share it. Write in the comments things that you liked about it, things that you didn't, some theories that you have also about the episode or where it's heading.
Let us know what you think, how wrong we are, how right I am. Right along those lines.
Girl.
And, we should be zooming along with this. Hopefully, now that we have the first 2 out, we can be a quicker pace with these and kind of go along with the show. But it's been, we hope you're enjoying the videos. It's been fun to watch the show, record it. It's been a good season so far.
Yeah.
And a lot of mystery. We don't know where it's going.
It's a lot. It's really all over the place, so it could go anywhere from here. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye. We look like the twins from The Shining. Just like